Imagine never lifting a finger your entire life. Never fetching water. Never washing your own clothes. Never cooking your own food. Because you have 4 brothers who treat you like a fragile egg that might break if you do anything for yourself. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, for Doris, it was her reality. 4 brothers. 1 precious daughter. And a family that loved her so much, but life has a way of teaching you the lessons you refuse to learn gently. And Doris. She was about to get the lesson of a lifetime. Once upon a time, in a bustling town in Enugu, there lived a couple with 4 sons. This couple had carefully planned on having just 2 children, a boy and a girl, but when they gave birth to their first child, he was a boy. The second child was also a boy, and they kept on trying because they really needed a girl child. After the 4th child, who was also a boy, was born, they decided to give up on conceiving a girl. But after 5 years, they tried again, and this time around, they gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Doris. From the moment Doris entered the world, she became the center of attention. Her arrival was celebrated with such joy that neighbors thought they had given birth to royalty. Her mother would wrap her in the softest wrappers, coo at her for hours, and tell anyone who cared to listen, "My daughter, my precious daughter. God has finally answered my prayers." Doris, being the only girl in her family, lived a love-filled life. She was born into a normal, average Nigerian family. Her father was a commercial bus driver, and her mother was a housewife. The father provided everything for them and made sure they lacked nothing. Life was so beautiful to Doris that she experienced heaven on earth because she had 4 brothers, and these brothers loved her to death and were always at her beck and call. Unlike other families where the girl child was trained to sweep, cook, wash, and serve, Doris was exempted from all of it. Maybe it was because she was the only girl among all boys, or maybe it was because her mother had longed for her so desperately that she couldn't bear to see her daughter do any form of labor. Whatever the reason, the result was the same. Doris was treated like a fragile ornament that must never be touched by the harshness of life. The brothers, most especially, doted on Doris. They wouldn't allow her to lift a finger. Every morning, Abuja, the firstborn, would fetch her bath water and set it in the bathroom, testing the temperature with his hand to make sure it was just right. Chinedu, the second son, would lay out her school uniform on the bed, ironed to perfection. Chokwu, the third son, would prepare her breakfast, tea and bread with eggs, and bring it to her on a tray. Ikena, the youngest of the boys, would pack her school bag and carry it to the car for her when their father was ready to drop her off at school. They washed her clothes for her, scrubbing each piece with care as if they were handling gold. They were like her personal bodyguards, hovering around her, making sure no harm or discomfort ever came near her. If she so much as frowned, they would rush to ask what was wrong. If she sighed, they would ask if she needed anything. This constant act of service, this endless pampering, made Doris develop a strong sense of pride. She began to feel like the most beautiful girl in the world and also like the most important person in existence. She looked at herself in the mirror every morning and smiled, convinced that she was a queen among peasants. Gradually, she developed a bad character. She stopped greeting the neighbors. When Mama Ngozi, the woman next door, called out, "Good morning, Doris," as she passed by, Doris would simply toss her hair and walk on as if she hadn't heard. When Papa Emeka, the kind old man who sold vegetables at the junction, waved at her, she would look away with a bored expression. She walked with her head held up high, her shoulders thrown back, looking down on everyone around her as if they were beneath her. At school, she was known as the beauty queen, but not because of any inner qualities or kindness. She deliberately made friends with the ugliest set of people in class, girls with rough skin, unkempt hair, and shabby uniforms, so that no matter where they went, their attention would always be on her. She would stand among them like a peacock among chickens, preening and basking in the admiring stares of boys and the envious glances of other girls. Her performance in school was nothing to write home about. She barely passed her test, often coming home with grades that would have earned any other child a serious scolding. But because she was the only girl and her family loved her so much, they said she had nothing to worry about. After all, a rich man will come and marry her, Mama Doris would say with a dismissive wave of her hand whenever her husband mentioned Doris's poor grades. School is just for formality. What she needs is a good husband, and with her beauty, that will not be a problem. Her mother was not helping matters in training the child. In fact, she was in charge of the over-pampering and overprotectiveness. She encouraged the brothers to care for Doris so much that it became a routine, like it was their sacred duty to attend to her every need. Sometimes, through small jokes and banter, the amount of money they would collect for her bride price became a running family comedy. Any man that wants to marry my beautiful sister must pay 10 million naira, you hear? Chokwu, the third son, said one sunny afternoon while he was washing Doris's clothes alongside the other brothers. They were all gathered in the backyard, their hands deep in soapy water, scrubbing away at her delicate fabrics while she sat inside, painting her nails a bright red and humming to the latest Afrobeat song on the radio. 10 million naira. You and who? Ikenna, the last born, challenged with a mischievous grin. Please, 10 million naira is too small. Me, I am collecting dollars. If you don't have dollars, please shift to one side and let another rich man with dollars come and marry her. I am not joking. It is dollars or nothing. Exactly. That is how the matter will be. Abuja, the first son, chipped in with a hearty laugh, wringing out one of Doris's blouses. Me, I am collecting $10 million and a plot of land. Good land in Lekki. Add it to the list. They all burst into laughter at the comments and continued with the washing, their jokes echoing across the compound while Doris smiled smugly inside, enjoying every bit of the attention and worship. She felt validated, powerful even. In her mind, she truly believed that a prince would come for her someday, and all of this worship, this service, was merely preparation for the life of luxury that awaited her. Meanwhile, in everything that was going on, Motsi Okoro, Doris's father, was not in support of the over-pampering. He would come home tired from driving his bus all day, his body aching from sitting in Lagos traffic for hours, and he would watch his daughter sitting like a queen while her brothers ran around serving her. It troubled him deeply. Mama Doris, he would call his wife aside in the evenings when the children had gone to bed. This thing you are doing to that girl is not good. You need to train her properly. Teach her how to cook, how to clean, how to manage a home. What will happen when she gets married and doesn't know how to do anything? But Mama Doris would always wave him off with irritation. This attitude went on until Doris turned 15, and that was when everything changed. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Motsi Okoro was returning from dropping passengers from Anambra to Lagos when the unthinkable happened. He was involved in a ghastly motor accident and died on the spot. The bus had collided with a trailer that lost control on the highway. When the news reached his family, Mama Doris almost ran mad. Her vision blurred with tears and shock, and she let out a scream so piercing that the neighbors came running. She clutched her chest, gasping for air, and collapsed to the ground. The next moment she opened her eyes, she was crowded by people who were sprinkling water on her face, fanning her desperately, calling her name. And that was when things started to turn around badly for them. After the burial, which was a modest, tearful affair attended by relatives and neighbors who whispered about the family's uncertain future, Mama Doris went to the bank to collect her late husband's money. But to her utter shock and devastation, the bank manager, a stern-faced woman with glasses patched on her nose, informed her that the money did not belong to her. "Madam, I am sorry," the woman said coldly, barely looking up from her computer screen. The account holder listed his younger brother as the next of kin. "The money belongs to him, not you." But I am his wife." No amount of pleading, crying, or explaining could change the situation. At the end of everything, Mama Doris could not collect a single naira. Her husband's younger brother, who had always been jealous of his brother's success, took every kobo and disappeared, refusing to help the widow and her children. Things started looking very bad for them. They couldn't afford their normal lifestyle, their normal feeding, or their normal clothing. The landlord, a stern-faced man with no patience for sob stories, gave them a quick notice when they couldn't afford the rent again. They had to relocate to a one-bedroom flat in a poorer part of town where the 6 of them had to squeeze together. The room was so small that they could barely move. The roof leaked when it rained, and the walls were stained with mold. It was so suffocating and uncomfortable that the brothers, one by one, decided to leave the house and start hustling for themselves on the street. And Doris was not a helping hand. She couldn't do house chores. Her mother complained bitterly. "Doris, you have to help me. We are suffering. Can't you see that things have changed?" And Doris would reply with frustration, her voice dripping with resentment, "Mama, you made me this way." It was a painful truth that Mama Doris could not deny. She had created this monster, and now she had to live with it. But man must survive. At the end of everything, Doris had to start helping out in the little way she could. She stayed at her mother's small roadside shop, a rickety wooden structure that sold provisions. Doris made mistakes in calculations constantly. Sometimes she would forget to collect money from customers who took advantage of her confusion. Sometimes she would give out much more change than necessary. Even with all these errors, her mother had no choice but to keep persevering with her, hoping that she would adapt quickly. At a point, when business got really bad and they could barely afford to eat one meal a day, Doris had to hawk. Mama Doris bought a basin of cold minerals, Coke, Fanta, Sprite, and bottled water, and Doris would carry them on her head to the construction site nearby. It was the most humiliating experience of her life. Doris, who had once walked with her head held high, looking down on everyone, now walked with a heavy basin on her head, sweating under the hot sun, begging men covered in cement dust to buy her drinks. Through the help of her mother's distant relative, a woman who pitied their condition, Doris managed to pay for her WAC examination. She wrote the exam, and through expo that her classmates shared with her and a bit of luck, she succeeded and passed. One day, as she was hawking at the construction site under the scorching afternoon sun, the engineer in charge of the construction site saw her. His name was Tebena, and he was a well-dressed man in his late 30s, with a confident stride and an air of authority. Noticing her beauty even under the harsh conditions. One afternoon, he called her over. "Come here, my dear. What is your name?" "Doris, sir," she replied shyly, setting down her basin. Doris. Beautiful name for a beautiful girl. From that day, Tebena began to pay special attention to her. He would buy from her every day, give her extra money, and ask her questions about her life. Slowly, they started talking. From talking, they started exchanging phone numbers. From phone calls, they started dating. Doris was swept off her feet. After months of suffering, of being humiliated, of feeling like her life was over, here was a man who treated her like a queen again. He bought her new clothes, took her to restaurants, and promised her a better life. "The engineer is very rich, Mama," Doris would tell her mother excitedly, her eyes shining with hope for the first time in months. "He said he wants to marry me. He said he would take care of us." Mama Doris was initially happy, but as time went on, something didn't feel right. Tebena never invited them to his family house. He never introduced them to his relatives. He never talked about doing a proper traditional marriage. "I am only trying to protect you. Protect me." Doris laughed bitterly. "Where were you when I was hawking in the sun? Where were you when those boys were laughing at me? You didn't protect me then. Now you want to protect me from the only good thing that has happened to me. If you want to marry him, then marry him," Mama Doris finally said quietly, her voice broken. "But mark my words, Doris. Not everything that glitters is gold. On the day she was to move in with her husband, she called her friends over, the same ugly girls she had befriended in school, and shared her old clothes and belongings with them, feeling generous and superior. "Take this, take that," she said, tossing clothes at them carelessly. "My rich husband will get new ones for me when we arrive at his house. He loves me so much. He has already promised to buy me a whole new wardrobe. He stays in Abuja, you know. The capital. Imagine me, Doris, living in Abuja." Her friends clapped and squealed with envy, praising her good fortune. When it was time to leave, Mama Doris hugged her daughter tightly, tears streaming down her face. "My daughter, please be careful. If anything goes wrong, remember that you have a home here." Doris pulled away from her mother's embrace impatiently. "Nothing will go wrong, Mama. Stop being negative. I will be fine." And with that, she entered Tabena's car, and they drove off to Abuja, leaving behind her weeping mother. The journey to Abuja was long, but Doris didn't mind. She sat in the car, imagining the luxurious life that awaited her. But when they arrived at Tabena's house in Abuja, her dreams shattered into a million pieces. It was nothing like what he had told her. It was the complete opposite. A face me I face you, one-room apartment in a crowded, noisy compound where neighbors' quarrels and crying babies filled the air day and night. Doris stood at the entrance of the room, her bags at her feet, staring in disbelief at the peeling paint, the rusted zinc roof, the single bulb hanging weakly from the ceiling, the small window covered with a torn curtain, and the tiny space that was supposed to be her new home. "Welcome home, my wife," Tabena said casually,